The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on a Saturday morning here in California. Hope you guys are doing well and having a good weekend. Let's see. We already got a thumbs down. Somebody already doesn't like the show. Haven't even started. I guess they just don't like me. All right. Let's see. All right, so today we're going to continue the series that we started with, that is funded by Troy, on applying the Objectivist ethics to life and business. I am happy to take any questions you have on that. You can use Super Chat to do that on YouTube. Super Chat is open. We already got 3 questions, not on this topic, but on related topics. Anything else you want to ask that is unrelated to the topic? Again, you can use the Super Chat. I'm open to answering any of your questions on anything. So you can use the Super Chat to do that. I will general questions that are not related to the topic I leave to later. Of course, questions that have a dollar tag of $20 or more get priority, and the higher the dollar tag, the higher the priority is. So yeah, good. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for spending your little bit of your Saturday with me on the show. Today we're going to talk about rationality, the virtue of rationality, how to apply it to your life, what it means, how to live a life of rationality, and then how do you apply it to business, and what it means to live a life or to run a business based on the principle of rationality, based on the virtue of rationality. We've got 3 quick Super Chat questions before we get rolling on the issue of rationality. Let's do these ones quickly. Thoughts on Holst? Holst, the composer. Jupiter is uplifting and benevolent. Yeah, I mean Holst is good. I like Holst the Planets. I don't know much of Holst's other music, but I certainly like the Planets. It's really good. It's part of a 19th century, early 20th century, really good musical tradition, and I definitely enjoy Holst. I wish I knew more of his music. I don't know that much beyond the Planets. I'm sure he wrote other good stuff. Joe Average is drawing on savings to buy necessities, mass liquidation of labor. How can you say the middle class is better off and economy strong? I mean, right now it's not. Right now the middle class is suffering significantly, and the economy is unbelievably weak. Because of COVID. So I wasn't making that argument. I was making the argument that before COVID, the economy, I've never said the economy was particularly strong. That's a Donald Trump thing. No, the economy was doing okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible, wasn't on its face. And the middle class was doing fine. That is, the middle class had grown dramatically. I mean, just look at the stats. You can talk about specifics of people selling stuff or using savings. Right now, obviously, but even a year ago, you could find particular people that weren't doing well. But overall, the middle class shrunk because people from the middle class did exceedingly well and became part of the wealthier class. So there was upward mobility, significant upward mobility among the middle class. That's just what the data shows. And of course, you can see the enhancements in quality of life that have happened over the last 30 years. Just not simple things, but things like the reduction in deaths from cancer because of better medical treatment. That is life enhancing. That makes the quality of life and standard of living higher. But you can't capture it in the economic data. Or the existence of an iPhone, the existence of Netflix, the existence of Zoom, increase the quality of life, standard of living, which the middle class enjoys, and it can afford all these things. So the middle class can afford more. Right? The middle class can afford more and it gets a higher quality of life as a consequence. But the middle class has not done badly. It's not done anywhere near as good as it should have and could have done. And certainly the poor have not done as well as they should have and could have done. On all those counts, we should be in much better condition, and we would be in much better condition if we had capitalism. We don't, so the economy grows at a fast, slower rate. But the doom and gloom about inequality and about the death of the middle class is just basically, it's just not true. Now, doom and gloom since COVID, since March, absolutely. I mean, it's horrible what is going on. I've talked about this during COVID. The middle class is being crushed by lockdowns, by decline in business, by panic, by hysteria, by people being afraid to go out and to shop and to go to restaurants and to engage in activities, and our politicians restraining our economic activities. All of that. All right. The price of the Dow has gone down 50% in gold terms since 2003. In US dollars, it's gone up 300%. To me, that says that the US dollar is failing. What do you draw from this? I don't believe the numbers, right? So I don't believe any of those numbers that you are suggesting. So I'd have to go and look at what happened since 2003. But again, the Dow right now, I don't know what it is right now, and I don't know how much it's gone up since 2003, but it's obviously gone up a lot since 2003. Gold, how much has gold gone up since 2003? Gold has probably doubled since 2003, and if the Dow has gone up 300%, then it wouldn't be down in gold terms 50%. So the math just doesn't add up. I just don't see how the math adds up. I'm willing to take a look at this and answer another time. One thing that people don't realize is that what you have to do with the Dow is to take into account that the Dow companies pay dividends, and you have to reinvest those dividends into the Dow. So you have to look for a graph that not just gives you the level of the Dow at any particular moment, but what you had actually gotten in return if you'd invested in the Dow. Gold doesn't pay dividends, the Dow does. So what would you have gotten in terms of dividends? And what would have happened if you'd reinvested those dividends? And then how does the Dow do? So I've seen graphs where gold outperforms the S&P 500 since 1970 something. But that's just completely untrue. The S&P 500 way outperforms gold if you take into account dividend reinvestment. All right, two quick ones, and then we really have to go to the topic. Why did Israel go full communist? Why didn't Israel go full communist? Didn't go full communist because the people weren't communists. They didn't believe in communism. There was a small minority of people who were communists. Most of the people who came to Israel were not communists. They might have been socialists. They might have been leftists early on, but they weren't communists. And they liked entrepreneurship. They liked creating their own businesses. They liked private property. And the government, even the people in the government, were never full communists. They might have started out in their youth as communists, but became, socialists over time. And Israel was socialist enough, but it certainly never flirted with communism. The Communist Party in Israel was never very big, and the movement in Israel was to sustain the socialism that they had when they established it, but there was never a significant movement to go even further to the left. People didn't believe in it. People didn't want it. People would not have voted for it. People would have rebelled against it. Is it moral to test self-avowed collectivist as a collective? To treat self-avowed collectivist as a collective? It is legitimate to say all Antifa, BLM are bad, or should we treat them as individuals who may be wrong or uninformed on the group basis? I think with regard to Antifa, you can certainly say they're all bad because they engage in violence. Violence is bad. And even people who might be ignorant of certain things should know, and know, I think, at a pretty basic level, that beating people up and being violent is illegitimate. So I think you can't treat them. BLM is a little trickier because I think a lot of people get involved with BLM for innocent reasons, just like a lot of people get involved in environmentalism for innocent reasons. So I think with BLM, I would be cautious, and I would say the leadership of BLM, the activists of BLM are all bad, but not to try to say that anybody who's ever demonstrated held up a BLM sign is immoral. I think many of those people are misinformed and ignorant and just don't know how bad BLM really is. So I think you have to be more careful with BLM in terms of generalizing. But certainly you can say a lot about the activists and the founders. All right, we're going to switch. We're going to switch from politics, and we're going to go to what Troy has paid for and what I think is more valuable than this, and that is a discussion of the objectivist ethics. In particular, what we want to talk about today is rationality, and we'll go through kind of all the virtues during the next few weeks. So we talked about last time. Last time we talked about applying the objectivist morality. We talked about last time the fundamental choice that all human beings face, the choice between life or death, survival or not surviving, dying, going out of existence. And that once one chooses survival, one has to figure out how to survive. That nothing comes automatically, that we don't have survival pre-coded into our DNA. We don't have, like animals or like many like evolutionary psychologists believe, we don't have the needs to survive and certainly to thrive and to be successful as human beings encoded in us. It doesn't come automatically. It requires us to use the one thing that is part of us, that is part of our biology, to figure out how to live, how to thrive, how to survive. And that means using our mind. It means using reason. Because reason is the way in which we survive. If you look at every human value out there, and we talked about this in terms of hunting last time, but you look at every human value that we have, it is not a product of wishful thinking. It is not a product of emotion. It is not a product of some kind of intuition. It's not a product of revelation, of mystical revelation. It is a product of observing reality, integrating the facts of reality, of using logic to make sure one's conclusions are not contradictory, of thinking, of applying reason, being rational. Rationality is the activity. So the formal definition of rationality, it's the recognition and acceptance of reason as one's only source of knowledge, one's only judge of values, and one's only guide to action. So rationality is the acceptance, the recognition, and the application, everything that implies in one's own life. Recognizing that no knowledge and acting in accordance, that no knowledge can be attained without reason. That you can't judge, you can't figure out which values are good for you, which are bad for you, which ones you should actively pursue, what's important, what's less important. You can't do any of that without using reason. And therefore, if it's our only source of knowledge, and if it's our only way to evaluate, judge our values, then it's our only guide to act. We should act based on rationality, based on reason. So rationality is the action. It's the recognition, acceptance, and living by. It is the principle by which we live. Reason is the value. Reason is what we're attaining, what we're trying to attain, to keep, to hold on to sustain. And it is this life of reason that we want to talk about today. What does it mean to say you recognize and accept reason as your only source of knowledge and your only guide to action and your only judge of values? What does that mean in terms of actions? What does that mean in terms of your thinking? What does that mean in terms of what you do in your life, in your personal life, in your professional life? And what does it mean for a business to have rationality as a virtue? What does it mean for business to say we are going to guide our actions as a business based on reason? So, Action Jackson is asking you, because he creates the short videos, asking you if after the show you'd consider giving him some input about what you think would be the best timestamps to put on the show. So what do you think would make the best segments to create separate videos from? So please help us make these more popular, some of them go viral, by letting Action Jackson know what you think the best segment, the ones that have the most likelihood to be seen by large numbers of people. So what does it mean to go by facts? What does it mean to go by reason? Well, it means that you focus on the facts and only the facts in decision making. And this is true of your personal life, this is true of your professional life, this is true of how one should run a business. What are the facts that are known to me? What are the facts that I need in order to make a decision? Where do I go to find the information I need in order to make a decision? It orients you towards action of discovery. Rationality is not about sitting in a dark room thinking. It's about actively pursuing truth. It's about actively going out there and seeking the information, the facts, the evidence one needs in order to come to a conclusion, in order to gain the knowledge necessary for action, in order to understand all the different options one has in order to act. In a business, the goal should be to create a culture that is fact-based, a culture that is reality-oriented, that is truth-oriented. What is actually going on? What are the actual facts? Not what I wish, what I hope, what do my clients want, what do my customers want, what does anybody want? But what are the facts? What is the evidence? What do we know? And that's not always easy. That's not always easy. I mean, when it comes to people, right? When it comes to people, let's say you have two acquaintances, two people that you know, right? And that you esteem, that you think highly of. And some information is revealed. Not information. Somebody says, here's some facts, here's some stories, here's some things about this person you should know, which are condemnatory to one of the two parties. One of the two parties that you esteem, that you value, that you like, that you hold in regard. Right? What do you do with that now? And the person who's providing this new information is not providing evidence, is not providing, this is he's providing information, a story. And the fact is that one of the parties supports this theory of what happened, and the other party does not. What do you do? Well, how do you make a decision? What kind of actions can you take? Let's say this is important to you. It's an issue that resonates with you. Well, step one is to figure out, what do you actually know? And know here means firsthand. So what do you actually know? Second, What is the context? That is, what do you know you don't know? What do you know you don't know? Can you find out what you don't know? Is it important enough for you to find out what you don't know and expand the realm of what you know? Given the context of the people involved, given the context of everything that you know, do you have enough information to judge, to say who's right, who's wrong, who's good, who might be bad? Do you have that information? Right? And then, what is the context? What information do all these people have, given that they're making declaratory statements? Are they in a position to be able to know what they're talking about? So in every respect, there is a lot of work to be done to figure out what's actually going on. And this is just between, let's say, 3 people, 4 people. But in everything, it is incumbent upon us, if we're going to act on something, if we're going to make a judgment about something. Remember that rationality involves knowledge, judgment, guidance to action. All of that requires facts, orientation towards reality, what's really going on, and that requires knowing what I know, what I don't know, what the context of my knowledge is, what the context of the things I don't know is, and can I make a judgment? And often you will find in life that you will come to the conclusion that you cannot make a judgment because you don't have enough information, because you don't have enough facts. And if you have to make a judgment about people, then you might not be able to. You might have to walk away without making a judgment. If you have to make a judgment, then you better get more information. You better get more facts. You better get enough facts. So that you can actually judge and act. So step 1 is always get the facts, understand what you know, understand what you don't know, and if it's important to judge, then go on and get as many facts as you need in order to be able to judge the situation. And sometimes, in spite of searching for those facts, at the end of the day, you might discover that you cannot get them. And it's incumbent on you not to judge based on partial information, but to walk away and say, I can't judge you. Now, if you have to, then you do the best that you can with the information that you have. But then you better know that you have to. So we want to focus on fact. We want to focus on reality. Decision making, requires choices. And choices can't be made in a vacuum. They require judgment. So before you approach any decision, you need to ensure that you have the data, the information for the different alternatives, for the different possibilities. You have to start with reality, and you can't ignore anything. You can't go by gut feeling or by intuition. Now, sometimes you have to because you don't have time. But most decisions require that you think it through, that you evaluate the facts, that you not accept your gut reactions and your intuition. And the facts will often contradict your gut reactions and your intuitions. You might meet somebody and your gut reaction is they're a horrible person. And as you get to know them, you come to really, really like them. And sometimes the opposite happens. Your gut reaction might be, oh, this person's great. And then you discover that they're actually really bad people because you learn more facts. Somebody asked me, does anyone know if Yaron believes in universal objective morals? Yes. I'm articulating them. Rationality is a universally objective virtue. And we're discussing what that means. Any chosen action that harms human is evil and immoral? That's not true. What if the human you're harming is not innocent? What if the human you're harming is trying to kill you? Yeah, just let's stick to the program. A lot of times facts will arise that you don't want to recognize, that you don't want to be true, that you don't want to consider. Think about situations in your life where you had a hint of bad news, of something that would require you to change your evaluation of a person or an activity. And you consciously or almost consciously said to yourself, maybe you didn't put it in words, but you acted like, I'm not going to look there. It's too uncomfortable. I'm not going to look there because it's going to be too much work. It's going to be too much pain. I'm going to ignore it. That's evasion. And in objectivism, that is a universal bad. That is the source of all evil. It's the source of all immorality. It's the refusal to think, the refusal to acknowledge that there is a fact out there. It's to blind yourself on purpose, to cripple your own mind by not willing to recognize a fact, by not being willing to face reality. You have to look. It might not be pleasant, but your survival, your happiness, your success at living as a human being depends on looking. You got to look. Add that to the facts that you have. You suspect you suspect one of your employees is stealing. But you don't want to know that they're stealing because, oh my God, first of all, the disappointment, and secondly, the hassle and the police. And I know so many people that for years suspect something like that, suspect their spouse is having an affair, suspect that somebody is doing something bad, and they choose to ignore it and they let it fester, and it gets worse and worse. And all they're doing is hurting themselves. All they're doing is damaging their own life, which is immoral. Your life is the standard. Your life, your happiness, your success at living is the standard. So you must, for your own life, for your own survival, for your own success, you must face reality, face the facts as they are, whether they're pleasant or unpleasant, whether they support your gut reaction or they don't support your gut reaction. So you always want to look, and you always want to return to the facts. And when you find something unexpected, when you find something harrowing, when you find something unpleasant, you're going to feel bad emotions, but you got to be able to put those emotions aside, and you got to be able to deal with the reality as it is and figure it out. And maybe it turns out that it's wrong. Maybe it turns out that you're mistaken. So you've got to be rational in responding to bad news. What's involved? What are the consequences? And think about at work. In business, this is very relevant. Think about an employee who comes to you and says, the product we just launched, it's not selling. Now, I know some bosses who take it out on the employee. It's not selling, you're not doing your job. Whoever brings the bad news gets hammered by the boss. Now, that business is not going to do well. That business is ignoring reality. The job of the boss is to figure out why, to accept the news, to figure out what's going on. It might turn out that you're not doing a good job, but can't be the defensive response. One has to evaluate what's actually going on in the marketplace. One has to evaluate exactly what's going on within the company. One has to actually be able to absorb, accept negative news, and deal with it on a factual basis, based on facts. Deal with it rationally, using reason, versus what I see all the time, dealing with it through emotion. Rationality requires that we hold the context. Right? That we know, what we need to figure out. But also, I talked about this, also, how certain are we of the various pieces of knowledge that we think we have, of the various facts? Some things we might be certain of, some things we might only have a probability of 50%. Some things we might have a different probability of. That is, the level of certainty about different elements is important in coming to a conclusion. And what facts do I need to be certain about? And therefore, do I need to be more research in order to get that certainty? Again, this is true in your personal life. This is true in your, if you're an investor in analyzing a company. This is true in business, in making a business decision. For example, in business, one of the questions you would ask are there appropriate people involved? In life, are there experts I can ask and get opinions from? Are there people who I know, who I trust, who I can get advice from, who I can broaden, get new facts, new information from, so that I can make a better decision? Nobody can decide for you. Only you can make that decision. We'll talk about that when we talk about the virtue of independence. But are there people who can help? Is there a team I can put together at work who could solve this problem, who can do the research, who can find the information, analyze the situation, and act on it? So, context, knowing what you know and what you don't know, what is needed, and how this situation with a friend, with a lover, with a business, is it similar, different than situations you've had in the past? What did I learn from those situations? How can I apply that here in this context? And then you've got to integrate. So integrate to previous problems or issues. Integrate to other knowledge that you have. Like the example I gave before, two people in conflict, you hear stories, you hear rumors. Well, what do you know about each of these people? How does the stories about their behavior integrate with other knowledge that you have? Maybe you first had knowledge of your interaction with them. How do you make this work? How do you apply this? What similarities are there between the different facts in the situation? Between facts you know for certain, facts you know with some probability. Where are the contradictions? How can I resolve the contradictions? Remember, logic is the art of resolving contradictions. It's the art of non-contradictory thinking. It's going and figuring out where the contradictions and getting rid of them, resolving them. Find out what's fundamental and what's secondary, what's a side issue, what's important. Try to simplify problems. To think. Think, facts, context, integrate. Facts, context, integrate. And then remember that emotions are not tools of cognition. Emotions might tell you something about you, about how you respond to things, about what you see as threats or benefits or so on. But they're not tools of cognition. They're not telling you anything about the world. They're telling you something about your response to the world. So, in making decisions, it is reason, logic that are the methods to follow, not emotions, intuitions, gut feelings. Now, you don't ignore those. What you try to do is understand your emotions, understand your intuitions, and if you have time, understand your gut reactions, so that if there is any information embedded, then there may be about your priorities or maybe about something you've missed, you can take those into account. Right? Constantly, in important decisions, constantly re-examine assumptions and conclusions. Constantly reevaluate. Make sure you're making the right conclusion, getting to the right things, have the right facts. But at the end of the day, at some point, you can't paralyze yourself. You can't paralyze yourself by, people talk about overthinking. Now, there's no such thing as overthinking, really. But there is this thing as obsessing and not letting go and not having the courage to come to conclusions. Again, conclusions might not be pleasant. Conclusions might not be easy. About an employee you have to lay off or fire. About a product you might have to kill. But at some point you have to come to a conclusion. You can't say, well, I need more evidence and I need more facts and I need more. At some point, and it's hard to tell when, there is enough information to make a decision. And to act on that decision. And to judge based on that decision. Or you could come to the conclusion that you can't. And then you have to assess. Can't I because the information I need is not attainable, cannot be achieved? Can't I because I don't have the time to get the information? Can't I because there's something in the way? Can I get rid of what's in the way? So some things you walk away from where you can't make a decision. But most things, you should be able to get enough facts. Most things in life require judgment, require decision making, and require action. So don't paralyze yourself. Reason is not there to paralyze yourself from acting. I know so many people who want to think about this and want to think about that and want to think about this through and that through and maybe this will happen, maybe that happen, and they never act. They never do anything. Because they're constantly considering another fact, another possibility. At some point, action is necessary. At some point, the purpose of thinking is to act. The purpose of thinking is to achieve something. The purpose of thinking is to attain goals. Now, you can get a lot more depth into this by reading Leonard Peikoff. Leonard Peikoff has a number of courses that are on YouTube on morality, on rationality. And then, of course, he has OPA, Objectivist and the Philosophy Behind Man, that has a long section on rationality, what it means, how to do it, the purpose, and highly, highly recommend if you really want to get an in-depth philosophical understanding of what it means to be rational, which is essential, I think, to all human beings, because this is the way we live, or this is the way we should live. And indeed, if you think about your failures in life, most of our failures in life are consequences of not thinking. Of consequences of letting emotions get in the way, of consequences of not taking into account all the relevant facts, of consequences of evading certain facts. So most of our failures, put aside the failures that are a result of things that are outside of our control, although even there's a lot more in your control than you think. Failures, in a sense, you're responsible for them. There are always consequences of failures in your own thinking. There are always consequences of not doing the thinking right, of not going through, thinking things through, of not looking at all the facts, examining all the facts, evaluating all the facts, integrating all the facts, taking context into account. This is life and death. This is the way in which we survive. This is the tool that evolution has given us to survive. The trick is, none of it is automatic. None of it just happens. None of it is just, it just happens. You have to choose it. You have to initiate it. You have to engage with it. You have to actually exert energy in order to make it happen. Thinking is not automatic. It is the fundamental activity the choice is required for. When Hamlet says to be or not to be, the essential thing he's saying is to think or not to think. Now, Hamlet is the type, for those of you who've read Hamlet, who can't decide, who's totally obsessed by more information, more information. He knows the truth. He's got enough information for the truth. But he evades it. He doesn't want to recognize it. He doesn't want to acknowledge it. That his father's brother killed his father and married his mother. It's Shakespeare after all. It's complicated, right? But he doesn't want to acknowledge that. He purposely evades it. He is a man of inaction. He is a man who doesn't take his reason seriously. He broods instead of thinking and acting. And as a consequence, he dies and everybody of value to him dies. He can't handle the truth. And therefore he evades it. And the one thing in objectivism that you have to take from this is the truth matters. The truth is the only thing in the sense that matters to your life. And that you must learn to handle the truth. You must only deal with truth. I mean, one of the things you should be careful of is dealing with rumor, dealing with innuendo, dealing with half truths, half facts, half information. To be selfish means to be a truth seeker. It means that I'm committed to the facts. I'm committed to reality. I'm committed to the truth. I won't accept anything short of the truth. I won't accept anything short than reality. And I won't evade it. I won't ignore it. I won't turn my back to it. That is what it means to live a good life. That is the objectivist morality in a nutshell. Because as we'll see, every other virtue, every other universal human virtue is a derivative, is an application, is an aspect of this first one. It's an aspect of be rational. If you had to boil the objectivist ethics into one idea, it's be rational. Think, think, think. That's what life commands of you. Commands is the wrong word, of course. That's what life requires of you. That's what being human means. It means that thinking is required for your survival, for your existence. Right? So, commit yourself to the truth. Commit yourself to acting only on facts. Commit yourself to reality. Reality is what it is. Too many people, I see it daily, accept, rumors, innuendos, half-truths, stuff they have no knowledge, first-hand knowledge of. They accept as truth because they don't want to go through the effort, the epistemological effort, the chosen effort to actually figure out what is going on, what is right and what is wrong, what is actually going on in the world, what is actually happening, what do I know and what I don't know, what can I validate, what I can't validate. But your job in life is to do that work. Your job in life is to be a judger, is to be an evaluator, is to think. It's to think for yourself. Figure stuff out. Jonathan asks, from an investment perspective, he asks, objectivism stresses rationality, yet often irrational assets, Amazon, Bitcoin, perform best. Can you square this? Well, I don't think you can lump Amazon and Bitcoin together. I don't consider Amazon an irrational asset. Amazon is a massive value creator. And given its history of value creation, one can only project forward on the values that it could create. And therefore, I don't know if the price of Amazon at any given point in time is based on reality or not based on reality. But I wouldn't dismiss it as not being based on reality. It's certainly no Bitcoin, right? In terms of the valuation, valuations can get out of whack because people can be not rational sometimes. The fact that if we look at our culture and we look at the world out there, and we evaluate people as a lot, people are in parts of their life irrational, significant amounts of the time. Then why do we think that markets, which aggregate the decision-making of lots of people, are always going to be reflective of the most rational people? They won't, not in the short run. In the long run, I think they are, but not in the short run. And there's enough uncertainty about the future. There's enough uncertainty about valuation, disagreement and uncertainty about valuation, that there are going to be periods in which the valuation of certain assets are going to appear irrational, and maybe are irrational, because the irrational people in the marketplace at that point in time are dominating it. Now, irrationality cannot win long term. Irrationality cannot sustain itself long term. So ultimately, they will lose. So you had the dot-com bubble in 1999 when Amazon went through the roof. Well, starting in March of 2000, that corrected. If you remember, the NASDAQ went from 5,000 to, I think, 2,200. It went down by 60%. And that was the irrationality being penalized. And that's what happens. You can get away with irrationality in the short run. You can get away with that by acting on emotion and intuition in the short run. You can get away with dealing with bad people in the short run, but in the long run, it always comes back to get you. And that happens in markets as well. Stuff happens that is irrational, but it corrects. It corrects. With regard to Bitcoin, again, I think there's value there. I, for one, have no idea how to estimate that value, and I suspect there's a lot of irrationality in the marketplace, right? I think the value for Bitcoin is the interest in engaging in illegal activities, like moving capital out of China. I mean, that's why there's so much demand for this in countries where there's fear that there'll be capital controls. And the more we fear capital controls, the more demand there is for something like Bitcoin. So there is some basis for the value. I don't know what that value is. I don't believe Bitcoin can be an investment because there's no coherent valuation model for it. But there is this demand for easily and cheaply moving capital from one place to another, moving money from one place to another. And particularly, across state lines or to hide the transaction from the state, that I think supply a certain amount of demand. And then the question is how much demand and at what price? What are people willing to pay in order to to engage in this? And is there potential for competition? And what is that competition? I mean, there's a lot of analysis that has to go in it. And again, to the extent that prices, or to the extent that Bitcoin is dominated by irrationality, irrational investors, irrational individuals, to that extent, they will lose money in the end over time. I think that when Bitcoin goes in these speculative binges, then, it corrects itself and people suffer. People suffer. Right? Okay. I don't think it's true that Bitcoin isn't worth the electrons it's written on, because if you live in a country where you can't get your money out, Bitcoin might be the best way to engage in black market transactions, to get your money out in a way that you cannot be identified at. I don't know the details, but it seems to me that it's not completely worthless. It's just not clear what it is worth, and I suspect it's worth a lot less than what people right now are valuing it at. Right? So Tanico says, I find the thinking part easy, but actually to take the action is difficult. After I now know the contradiction, especially about relationships, but it's in everything. Action is difficult. It's difficult because we place too much importance on our short-term emotion. We're afraid. We're afraid of what we'll feel if we do it. Right? We're afraid of what the other person will feel. We're being trained by altruism. Remember, you cannot evade. You cannot shrug off the altruism. We've been trained by altruism to care more about the feelings of other people than our own feelings, their own long-term well-being. And as a consequence, we place way too much importance on the person maybe we're going to break off with, the employee we may be firing, instead of placing the importance on ourselves, on our own value, on our own success, on the profitability of the business. And as a consequence, we often sacrifice ourselves, not meaning to, but by avoiding the action for fear of offending, avoiding the action for fear of somebody else not feeling well. Now, you should take other people's emotions into account, but it can be a deciding factor. You need to be courageous in life. Courage is a virtue. It's part of integrity. Right? If you come to certain conclusions that require certain actions, you need to act. You need to act. Not acting is betraying your life. It's betraying your values. It's betraying your happiness. And there's no upside other than short-term relief from a certain amount of emotional pain. But most of that emotional pain is a consequence of guilt that you haven't earned, a consequence of the altruism you've been trained about. So don't let that dominate. By the way, I encourage you to ask questions about the topic in the super chat. It sounds easy and it sounds straightforward and it sounds maybe even trivial to some people. But it's the most important topic in the world. Much more important than anything going on in politics, economics, the world out there. It's you, your thinking, your life, your happiness, and how to do it. So this is where good questions about this stuff would be fantastic. Jonathan says that his point was simply investing is not about buying the most fundamentally sound companies. That's right. Investing is about finding those companies where the true value is not reflected in the price. And the true value could be that, like Amazon, that you think they're more expensive than they should be, and then you can short them or buy put options on them, in a sense. invest in a way that makes money as they correct downwards to what you think is the proper price, or it means buying a stock that you believe is undervalued. The fundamentals are relevant, but to establishing what you think the valuation is. But it's not, you don't just buy, although you could, and I'd make an argument you'd do pretty well, if you buy companies just based on that they're good companies, they make money, that they have a great business model. You do okay long term just buying companies like that. But as an investor, what you're really looking for is companies where there's misalignment between what you think based on facts and what the market thinks. Okay, let's see. What else do we want to talk about in terms of rationality? Any other questions in terms of rationality? GDC says he's cynical. This is why you should stop being cynical. Cynicism doesn't help you. It doesn't move you forward. It doesn't enhance your life. For a better world, we have to have others think rationally, but you can start right now. You can start by thinking rationally for yourself. Believe me, I am hurt almost daily, no, every minute of the day, by the fact that other people are not being rational, personally, and just because the world is not a better place. But that does not reduce my commitment to being rational in my own life one iota. Again, there's no alternative. If you value your life, if you value yourself, if you value your happiness, there's no alternative. All right, quick reminders. Don't forget to like the show. Thumbs up. We got 75 likes. There should be over 100 likes there, so please do that. It's easy, and it's an easy way to help with the algorithm of YouTube. Super chat. We've got a lot of questions. Most of them have been like really low-dollar questions, low-dollar contributions. So I really appreciate your support. If those of you who can use the super chat to really get, provide significant support for the show, so we can keep growing this, we can keep building on it, we can engage in more resources to bring these ideas to more people. And don't forget to use the super chat to ask me questions about the topic we've just discussed, about being rational, what it means, how to do it, where it comes from, and any particular situations, issues out there that you think we should try to evaluate using reason, using rationality. Let me just look here if I've covered all the points I wanted to. Facts, people. Think about what really is a fact and what isn't. What you can make a decision on and what you can't. What you would need to know. This is a big one, particularly in evaluating people. What would you need to know in order to make an evaluation? In order to discover the truth? What information would you need to know? Those are the kind of questions you should ask yourself when confronting a situation where you expect it to judge, make a decision. And this is true about politics. This is true about personal relationships. This is true about, certain, accusations being made maybe in the Objectivist movement. This is true about your job. This is true about being a boss. Now let's talk about, just for a few minutes, let's talk about leadership. What does leadership require? And here in particular, I'm talking about business leadership. How does rationality apply to the question of leadership? Leaders are thinkers. Leaders are people who put facts, reality, truth above all else. And then inspire others. Inspire others around a shared goal, a shared mission. But with truth, with facts. Now, you can be a leader. I think a failed one, ultimately. by inspiring people through emotion and through lies and through deception. But real leaders, successful business leaders, are truth seekers who inspire the people around them to do the best job that they can by seeking out what is good. So, for example, good leaders are ruthless about what is true and what is not, what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong, who is good and who is bad. Good leaders don't tolerate bad performance. They don't tolerate laziness. They don't tolerate irrationality. They don't tolerate, the bad, the irrational, the illogical. Good leaders demand that their people think for themselves as individuals. Good leaders like to be challenged when the challenges are based on facts and based on somebody's thinking, not just based on emotion, not just based on speculation, not just based on random stuff. Good leaders appreciate criticism if it's based on facts, if it's based on evidence, if it helps them get closer to the truth, to being better thinkers, to being more rational. And this inspires people when they know that what the leader wants is, let's say, a great product. And that leader might be nasty to them sometimes when they're not on the same page, when they're not driving to the same goal, when they're not bringing the same effort or not aligned with the same purpose. But if they know that this is based on fact, truth, not just on random emotion, not random stuff, then they're willing to tolerate a lot. So, what leadership involves is a mission that you believe is true, that you believe is good, that you believe is value creating, a commitment to facts, evidence, logic, and the ability to inspire people around that. The ability to inspire people around this mission and around your character and around your commitment to truth, facts, evidence. That's what leadership involves. And it requires being rational. It doesn't require, people think leadership is all about emotion. No. The passion and emotion are consequences of thinking, consequences of knowing, consequences of having clear values that are pro-life, that are worth attaining. And then the ability to convey that to your people, the ability to communicate, the ability to convey the passion and the seriousness and the extent to which you want and believe that these are the values that should be attained. And that you are ready, in a sense. You are capable and ready and in a position to help guide them in succeeding in achieving these values. That you take their success in achieving these values seriously. But it's about rationality. Now, I know a lot of rational people are not leaders, so you need a combination of things. But you cannot be, long-term again, a leader if you're not rational. And you can look at leaders around and they can get away with stuff. They can convince people to follow them. Hitler, FDR, lots of people, right? Are admired or respected, but they're failures. Hitler commits suicide in a bunker with, his lover and his kids. Politicians have miserable lives. Yes, they dominate us. They succeed in getting elected. But that's not the ultimate purpose. The ultimate purpose is, are they creating value and are they living? Are they living well? Are they happy? And they're not. They're pathetic. So leaders for a while can be successful within a very narrow scope, depending on how you define success, by being irrational or by having elements of irrationality. Not sustainable, can't last long. If you look at great business leaders throughout history, incredibly rational, incredibly thoughtful, incredible logical minds. They suck up information. They want knowledge. They are truth seekers. They exert huge amount of energy in trying to learn, grow, become better. And that's what you need to be a successful leader. I see the chat reverts to politics no matter what I talk about. It really is infuriating, guys. Not because you shouldn't be able to talk about politics, but because that's where your mind goes. What a waste. What a frigging waste. Of all the things you can spend your time thinking about, of all the activities you could spend your time engaged in, politics should be way down on the scope. You have almost no impact on it. It's all garbage. It's all negative. And every minute you spend on it, you'll never get back. Every minute you spend on it, you could be doing something productive, or you could be listening to some music, or you could be reading a good book. But the obsession about what did Trump say yesterday, or what did Biden say, the minutia of the politics of it is sad. It saddens me. And use your mind, be rational about thinking for yourself about whether you think rationally that it's the best use of your time. That you couldn't be enjoying life more. That there isn't something else you could be doing with your life that would enhance your life more. You couldn't be out on a date, or I guess a Zoom date these days. Could be out on a date, or listening to music, or going to a gallery, or hanging out with friends. Really, the most important thing in your life right now is to figure out the latest nuance of Republicans versus Democrats versus Libertarians. Sorry, I had to do that little rant. What facts should young people pursue when deciding a college major degree, especially as most STEM jobs aren't transparent in their daily tasks? Well, I mean, most STEM jobs, I don't know what kind of transparency you want. I mean, most STEM jobs require you to solve problems. A variety of different kinds of problems. If it's obviously in computers, then it could be programming. It's about problem solving. And look, the idea that you should, at 18, know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life, I think for most of us, is just not real. It's not true. So figure out what you enjoy doing, and that way you can make a living. STEM certainly is one of those things. And study it, and go do some work at it. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, then do some more thinking. You'll have more experience. You'll have more knowledge. You'll have more knowledge of self. You'll have more knowledge of the environment around you. And again, think. But don't assume, particularly today, don't assume that the decisions you make at 18 are final. I mean, you might have 5, 6 different careers, 5, 6 different professions. Suddenly you will have many, many jobs. So when you're deciding on a college major degree, think that what you're looking is an intersection of, if you will, 3 things. Your interests, what your abilities are, and what careers are possible in them. And you want to go and pursue a college major and degree based on the intersection of those three. And you weight them based on how important are they to you. Is it really, really important for you to do something you love? Or is it really, really important to you to make a good living financially? You have to weigh those. And you weigh them in making that decision. And if it's more important for you to do something that you love, then what kind of career you can have becomes less important. And what you love doing becomes more important. But you have to still earn a living, so some career has to be possible. But if you value more making a living than thinking about what career you could have is important. And of course, your ability, or what you believe your ability is, or what you're willing to raise your ability to, is crucial here, because whether you make a living or whether you pursue your passion, you have to be good at it. At least good enough to be able to create values so that you can earn a living from it. So you want to constantly think about those three things and find the best interaction, the best combination of those three that suits your values, that fits your life. And then follow it passionately. And then if you figure out you made a mistake, change course. One of the biggest challenges I find, particularly among Europeans, non-Americans, but also probably among younger Americans now, is the fear of failure. You got to fail. And it's not just even a fear of failure, it's the fear of making a wrong choice. If you make a wrong choice, then you change it. I mean, there are very few choices in life that are irreversible. I mean, there's some, but they're very few. Most choices you make are reversible. Most choices you make can be fixed. This is why I'm pro-divorce, pro-abortion, pro going back to school, pro lots of things that involve choices and giving you maximum choices so that you can not be locked in, not be committed long-term to something you don't want. I'm for having sex with a woman before you know, if you're a guy, or having sex with your future spouse before you get married. Having some sexual experience before you get married. So you can make better choices. And living with somebody before you get married. So that when you make the choice to commit long-term, you know what you're doing. So you've got to maximize your choices. You got to put yourself in the position to maximize choices. And don't be afraid of changing your mind. Don't be afraid of failing. All right, since there were no $20 questions, I'm going to just go from the beginning down. I don't see any on the topic, really. Here it is. I think it's beautiful that reality corrects itself the same way markets do. The USSR fell, reality correction. Hitler killed himself, reality correction. Absolutely. And bad people suffer. Bad people suffer. This is a point I'll make, I think, over and over again as we go through this series. The moral is the practical, because think about where Ayn Rand is getting her morality. From what works. From reality. From what's logically consistent with what will work in reality. So what is moral is going to work, and what works is the moral. Works in the proper long-term pro-life sense. Could the machine from the TV series Person of Interest be an objectivist? Can an artificial intelligence be considered an objectivist? Are any animals objectivists? No. To be an objectivist, you have to be a living being with will, with free choice, and you have to be, which is what it means to be rational. A machine is not rational because a machine cannot choose. By the way, I'm not going to be able to answer all the Super Chat questions today. So unless they're on topic, we might not get to them today. So I'm making a list, and I'll cover them tomorrow, or probably not tomorrow, on Monday. But I'm not going to be able. By the way, tomorrow I'll be interviewing at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'll be interviewing Johan Norberg. Johan Norberg is a Swedish intellectual. He writes, he speaks. He has a show on PBS showing people all the stuff that they're wrong about. And he's fabulous. He's really, really, really good. He's a good thinker. He's not an objectivist, but he's a big fan of Ayn Rand's, and he just wrote a book called Open about human progress and what's required for cultures to experience progress, to experience success. And he's a really good guy. We're going to be interviewing him. Very similar to Matt Ridley, a different focus, but very similar, and they're good friends. They do work together. But very fair, focused on this progress, focused on what is necessary for human success, for human advancement. And so I hope you'll join me tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be talking to Johan Norberg and on his book Open, and you should purchase that book. You should purchase the book Open. I'll be pitching it tomorrow. We'll be doing it live, and you'll be able to ask questions. So same format as always. All right. It costs 32 ounces of gold to buy the Dow in 2002. Today it's 14.5 ounces, 28.5 USD. The US dollar has lost buying power. You can't say that. The US dollar has lost buying power. There's no question. But I'm not sure you can extrapolate that on the Dow, because the Dow has provided you with dividends throughout that period. So if you'd bought the Dow and if you'd bought gold, again, you'd have different amounts of money today. I'm not saying gold does outperform the Dow plus dividends. Yeah, but you are saying the same thing. There's no question that the US dollar has gone down in value. Now, we'll see where gold ends up after the current crisis that we're in, because gold always anticipates inflation, and whether that inflation will materialize or not is a question, right? Gold reached 1,800, I think, during the financial crisis, and then went back down to 1,100. So whether its current levels are sustainable and reflect a real devaluation in the value of the dollar is unclear. We'll know that once the value of gold stabilizes, and that will only happen once all the uncertainty of all the economic actions that are being taken right now goes down. It's Johan, Johan Norberg, Norberg. He's going to join tomorrow. So I'll talk more about gold and about the markets another time. Okay, we got a $20 question. What does it feel like we're being trained to be cynical? Why does it feel like we're being trained to be cynical? Whenever good things are happening to good people, we expect a plot twist, a fake out. I watch Ford versus Ferrari, just waiting for the heroes to fail. Absolutely. We have all been trained to be cynical. Altruism trains you to be cynical. The good, in a sense of the rational, the self-interested, the value pursuer, cannot be happy. Because happiness indeed, the whole culture tells you, happiness is a sham. Happiness is unreal. Jordan Peterson tells us, happiness just happens. You can't do anything to get to the point of happiness. It just happens. And indeed, the things we associate with happiness, money, fast cars, fast women, glitzy everything, glitzy stuff, doesn't lead to happiness. So the movies we see, the good guys are miserable because they're the good guys, because the moral is the impractical. And the bad guys are happy because happiness is this ephemeral thing that comes from superficiality. And our whole culture, altruism builds this in, our whole culture is geared towards this. The guy who invented the word altruism said, Auguste Comte, he said, be suspicious of happy people because happy people are self-interested people. And you don't want to be self-interested. That's evil. That's bad. So you can't be happy. I'm pretty sure Jordan Peterson says that. He says that all the time. He says that happiness is not something you can achieve. Happiness either happens to you or it doesn't happen to you. You either have it or you don't have it. Your responsibility in life, the thing you can achieve, according to Jordan Peterson, is the reduction of pain. It's the reduction of the burden. It's a reduction of the darkness, of the chaos. But you can't achieve happiness. There's a lot of talk about happiness. There's a lot of self-help about happiness. But we are also at the same time taught that it's impossible, it's random. I mean, there's a whole literature now about whether you have the gene for happiness or you don't have the gene for happiness. There's a lot of material out there about, maybe you can be happy, but it would be immoral because you're not sacrificing enough. And indeed, we feel guilty. So many people feel guilty for being happy, or for striving towards happiness, or for trying to be happy. Profit is not moral. Is happiness moral if profit is not moral? So, we live in a culture that is cynical, and look, and we make fun of everything. I mean, what are the most successful TV shows? The shows that are cynical, whether it's The Simpsons or what do you call the other one? The cartoon one where they make fun of everybody and everything. Right? It's all about making fun of values, of ideas, it's not about building, it's about destroying. And that's the culture we live in. It's about cynicism, about happiness, about success, about profit, about ability. All right, after the show, please comment the timestamps of the things you would like to see created into short videos. See if there's anything I said. South Park is the show I meant, yes. I won't even watch Family Guy. Short videos and with the idea of we're looking for things that'll go viral. So let us know what you think would be good segments to splice up. All right. Is it okay in a business sense to be friends with your employee, people you manage? Will it just require more effort to separate the two roles? It definitely requires more effort to separate the two roles. It's definitely a challenge, but it's sometimes unavoidable. And indeed, at least it's difficult when you're a manager and employees. Those relationships are difficult because it's difficult to separate and it's hard. And a lot of people can't do it because they can't make that separation. They're not, in a sense, they're not rational enough. But people also say things like never go into business with your friends. I've only gone into business with my friends. And I've never really had a bad experience in business. I've had a bad experience in nonprofit world, but never in business. With going into business with my friends. I mean, they're your friends for a reason. Why would I trust going into business with people I'm not friendly with? People I don't like, people I don't value, people I don't admire. All the people I've gone into business with from the beginning of my life, and I've gone into businesses, failed and successful, many times, have all been friends of mine. And the better the friend, the better the business. The bigger the business. Because those are the people I trust. So employer is hard, doable, but hard because you need to be able to separate the things out. Partners, I think, necessary. Values combat overthinking in that they set the amount of effort that is worth it. Good point. Good point. I'm not sure who made it, but good point. Yes, if you have a clear hierarchy of values, you know on what you should spend your time. If something's low on the hierarchy of values, you don't spend a lot of time on it. If something's high on your hierarchy of values, you spend a lot of time on it. You dig for the information. You dig for the truth. You dig for the facts. This is true of people, right? The closer a person to you is, the more important a person to you is, the more it's important that you know all the facts, that you figure out what's going on. You figure out who's right and who's wrong in a conflict. You figure out why what's being said is being said. The more distant you are from them, personally, the less important a value they are to you, then the less time you're going to devote to that. So your hierarchy of values and having your values in a hierarchy, and we'll talk about that at some point on the show, is having a hierarchy of values and emphasizing that, will determine the energy, time, effort spent on coming to a conclusion, accumulating the facts, right? Getting to a decision. Does the truth hurt, as the popular aphorism claims? Sometimes, but mostly not. And at the end of the day, it's necessary to liberate you. There is nothing that can help you, that can please you, that can enhance your life more than the truth, even if it hurts in the short run. So sometimes it hurts. Mostly it liberates. Liberates in the sense of opens the world up to you, opens opportunities, creates opportunities. Would you ever bring Raka Ali on your show to discuss this? Why this? He talks about it a lot. About what? Being rational? Why or why not? If I had Raka Ali on the show, I don't know that I talk about this with him. I'm not sure he's an expert on this. I don't know. But he doesn't strike me as an expert in this. There are things he knows that I'm not an expert in, that he is. So if I had him on the show, I don't know if I talked to him about this, but probably not. I didn't know he talks about this a lot. I'll have to try to look. What steps would Peter Keating need to take to learn to think for himself and be more rational? What are his biggest barriers to that end? What did Stephen Mallory do to move past his fear? I think Peter Keating. So one of the things that I think the Fountainhead conveys is that at some point it's too late. The older you get, the harder it's going to be to fix yourself, and the deeper and the more committed you are to second-handed life, the harder it is to change it around and commit yourself to, right? So for Peter Keating, a young Peter Keating, it would be to emulate Rourke. It would be to look and try to figure out what makes Rourke tick, and to commit himself to reality, and to commit himself to his own values, to create a hierarchy of values and commit himself to it, to stop doing what his mother tells him and what his boss tells him and what his friends tell him, and to do what he really wants to do. And he's got a model right in front of him. So he would have to repudiate his whole mode of thinking, his whole mode of living, his whole mode of valuing, and accept a rational one. And the younger you are in doing that, the easier it is to do. Right? Stephen Mallory never gave in to the Peter Keating. Like, he always was in pursuit of his values, but he'd given up on those values. He was resigned. He was cynical to a fate of anonymity and failure and failure financially, and not being able to achieve his values. And that what helped him overcome his fear is that he did use Rourke as a model, that he saw Rourke. He learned from Rourke. He was inspired by Rourke. It's what saves Dominique. They see a model of what it looks like to be first-handed, to be committed to your values, to not give up, to not let the world crush you. And they see Rourke not being crushed. Yeah, Henry Cameron is crushed, right? So all the good guys are crushed, and the younger ones and the honest ones, the ones open to reason, open to reality, open to facts, and who care, can change by using Rourke as a model. And that's, by the way, you should use Rourke as a model. That is the beauty of novels, is they present you with heroic figures that you can use as models in your own life to inspire you. How does the pressure on good companies to be good corporate citizens affect their rationality? It distorts it, because now they don't go just on the facts as they know them, but now there's a whole other element, which is these are facts. They have to know these ideas, but these are false ideas. These are false things, and they have to. So I'll talk about that again tomorrow. And the thing about intellectual property, it's a bigger topic. So let me try to get to that on Monday. So both of those I'll do on Monday. The pressure, good citizen, and the intellectual property I'll do on Monday. I'll end with this one. Tell us about your interview and your impressions of Lex Friedman. It was a fantastic interview. It was over 3 hours. It flowed beautifully. It was really good. He asked good questions. He was engaged. He was And he is a fan, and that was fantastic. That was fantastic. So I really, really enjoyed it. I came out of that interview on a high, and I'm looking forward to having it released and sharing it with all of you. But it really was a terrific, terrific interview, and Lex has a massive following, in the hundreds of thousands, and a following of people who probably don't know anything about me because they're mostly scientists and mathematicians and AI people. And so it's going to be fabulous, I think, for the show. It's going to be fabulous in introducing me and Ayn Rand to new people and bringing more people to this. And he was really good, and we had a really honest, thorough conversation, very philosophical, personal, covered a lot of ground, a lot of issues. I mean, I think we could have gone another 3 hours, and I hope he has me back for another 3-hour session because I would love it. And I think we will do that at some point. But yeah, it was really awesome. It was deep. It was probably the best interview. I think you'll have to evaluate this. Maybe the best interviews. I mean, the best interviews I've done were Dave Rubin, the original one. Ben Shapiro I thought was really, really good, and this one. And this might be the best, partially because it's 3 hours. So we could really, really relax and go into issues and expand and talk. And so it was awesome. Awesome. So hopefully you'll all, when it comes out, I'll let you know, and you can all watch it and give me feedback and let me know. But I think it was terrific. Terrific. All right, that was Thursday. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all the support. Thanks to all of you in the Super Chat. I appreciate it. Those of you who want to support the show, you can do so on YaronBrookShow.com/support. That's my favorite way because it's monthly, it's constant. I know what's coming. You can also do it on Patreon, on Subscribestar, on Locals. Kyle says Dave Rubin was good. Yeah, Dave Rubin was good, but Ben Shapiro was also good. And so was the other interview I did with Ben Shapiro. So with Dave Rubin. So I've done 2 with Dave Rubin, one-on-ones, and 1 with Ben Shapiro, and this one. Those are, I think, my best interviews. Anyway, you can support the show that way. Don't forget, before you leave, please like the show. Let's get the number of likes up. Those of you coming to the show late, please go back and listen to the show from the beginning. I think it was a good show. There was a lot of good content, positive content about living your life, content about making the most of your life. Very little, if any, politics. That's always better. And, of course, don't forget to share. And don't forget to give us short snippets, ideas for short snippets from this and any other show that you think would go viral. Any short videos that you think from stuff that I've done in the past that you think were good. Please get them out. Let us know so that Action Jackson can turn them into videos that we can market. Thanks, everybody, and then you can share. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow, 10 o'clock. We've got Johan Norberg from Sweden. We'll talk about Sweden. We'll talk about COVID in Sweden. We'll talk about Sweden.